Call the February 11th, 2026 board meeting to order. We have 7 board members present. And item 2A is adoption of the agenda.
I would move for approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item 3A, recognition of the 2026 Horizon Award winner.
The board would like to recognize Miss Alyssa McHugh, 4th grade teacher at Walnut Elementary, for being selected as a 2026 Kansas Horizon Award recipient. The Kansas Horizon Award, sponsored by the Kansas State Department of Education, honors outstanding first-year teachers who demonstrate excellence in the classroom and stand out as exceptional educators. Ms. McHugh will be recognized at the luncheon during Kansas Exemplary Educators Network Conference in Topeka on February 20th, 2026. So many recognitions. The board would like to recognize Mrs. Sarah Bays, Emporia High School vocal teacher, and Mrs. Alex Voscheltz, 5th grade teacher at Village Elementary, for being nominated as Emporia Public Schools 2027 Kansas Teacher of the Year K-TOY representatives. The Kansas Teacher of the Year Award recognizes outstanding teachers in elementary and secondary classrooms across the state and builds a network of exemplary educators who lead efforts to improve schools, student performance, and the teaching profession. Both Mrs. Bays and Mrs. Voscheltz will complete the application process in hopes of being selected as the 2027 Kansas Teacher of the Year, with nominees honored and regional finalists announced in April 2026. Congratulations, ladies. The board would also like to recognize Mrs. Kathleen Gilliland, math teacher at Emporia High School, for being selected as a 2026 Kansas Master Teacher, an honor announced earlier today. Established in 1954 by Emporia State University, the Kansas Master Teacher Award recognizes 7 educators each year who exemplify excellence and the highest standards of professional practice. Mrs. Gilliland's selection reflects her deep dedication to students, her passion for teaching, and the meaningful impact she has in our classrooms. The 2026 Kansas Master Teachers will be honored on Master Teacher Day, April 1st, no fooling, 2026 at Emporia State University. And last but not least, the board would like to recognize Mrs. Meredith Knapp, music teacher at Walnut Elementary, for being selected by the North Central Kansas Music Educators Association as the Outstanding Elementary Music Educator of the Year for 2025-2026 school year. As a district honoree, her information will be forwarded to the state level for publication in the Kansas Music Review and consideration for Kansas Outstanding Music Educator of the Year, with the state announcement expected later this month. This recognition reflects Mrs. Knapp's dedication to her students and the exceptional music education she provides at Walnut Elementary. Congratulations. That's all I'm saying tonight.
Well, that's a great way to start a meeting. And again, congratulations to all our nominees. That's going to bring us to item 3E, public comments. Casey, do we have any public comments?
Yes, if Angie Schreiber would come forward.
Good evening. My name's Angie Schreiber, and I'm from here in Emporia. And I have 2 purposes for coming to the board this evening. The first is to thank Barb Fowler, a board member, for attending Literacy Day at the Capitol with me. We met and talked with a lot of people on literacy, including Janine Phillips from Fundamental Learning Center, David Herford from Pittsburgh State University, Jane Hayes from Read Redefined, and Cindy Lane, the Director of Literacy for the Blueprint for Literacy. In the trailer bill for literacy in the House, the ask is for $8.6 million to continue literacy, which is to focus on third grade reading attainment through the science of reading with evidence-based reading instruction. So thank you, Barb, for going to the Capitol with me. We did have an enjoyable day. We even did lunch. The second goes along with strong reading instruction. We become strong writers. And I would like to present to the board to hopefully place in the Emporia High School Library 2 books that were written by my daughter, Gretchen Schreiber. These books are also autographed by her. They were published in the last 2 years. I would like to give a shout out to her high school senior English teacher, Miss Ashley Thomas. She encouraged Gretchen to write, even though Gretchen thought she was a horrible writer. As most of you know, my daughter went on to the University of Minnesota and then to the University of Southern California. And she now has the job that everybody would love to have. She reads for a living. She's the book curator for Reese Witherspoon's book club. So I hope you will accept these books and place them into the library. And I would like to present them to Mrs. Fowler because she also encouraged my daughter during a very hard year when she was having surgery. She was Gretchen's 8th grade social studies teacher. So thank you. I hope you accept them.
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda, item 4. Items on the consent agenda are those for which the board has received information in advance and have been thoroughly reviewed. Approval of items may be made in a single motion, second, and a majority vote with no separate discussion of any item listed. Should a member of the board desire to discuss any item at their request, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to accept the consent agenda as published.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that's going to bring us to item 6A, District Facility Rental Usage Rate Approval.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the third go-around for this one, and that's what I like about the way we work together. We bring things to you, you ask good questions, we make revisions, and we end up with a better product. So our Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations, Mr. Josh Schwartz, will present this information and answer any questions you might have.
Thanks for having this back on the agenda, Ian. A couple weeks ago, we looked at a couple changes with the agreement and some of the fee structure pieces to that. I think on the board docs, there would be a clean document and one that would have had some of the edits and changes, along with just a summary of what some of those changes were since the last time that we talked about this. And just off memory, I do have some notes. I think some of those would have been trying to combine some of the fee structures on one page, so there were several columns of different things. If all those that were zero charge were put into one, still wanted to track what kind of category was being used, just from a usage rate, or just a usage follow process. We did add a couple rows in, for example, if it's misused, there's a warning. Kind of progressive. You can go from a warning all the way to.
You want to use my computer and get the document in front of you? The Board Docs has given us fits the last two meetings with regard to public view. When Casey gets into it, all of a sudden it won't show the attachments. And so you guys, I have it, but Casey's trying to present it, so, okay, Josh got it. All right, so,
And do each of you have it in front of you as well, where you can see what we're, okay, so. As I pull this up, I think another question that came up in that section 3 had to do with if there were multiple people that wanted to rent the facility at the same exact time, how do we break that tie? So Mr. Fisher had suggested we added a first, second, or third choice to the usage form. So if there were multiples that were all wanting on the same day, then there at least could be a second or third choice that would be used rather than contacting that group and trying to just spend a lot of time wasting time on the phone when you could just have a first, second, or third. So we feel like that would help break that confusion when that would come up. As I scan through on page, it's down to page 3 of the guidelines and procedures. Clarified what exactly 75% fit into as far as if a group was less than 75, there would be some charges versus, because I think the goal was to make sure we had students from Emporia that were using the facilities to not be any charge. That would be no charge. That's why that was changed. And yeah, page 5 of the guidelines and procedures also shows the 3 steps, kind of a progressive if the facility's misused. We kind of talked about that earlier. And then I think the other pieces are the building fees tables, which we didn't really change a lot since the last meeting. And then the actual form itself clarified how many people would, if it was going to be a larger event, asking the group to let us know how many would be there, and that would help us determine if a custodian needed to be there or not. We didn't want to charge somebody for a custodian if we didn't feel like there was going to be a need. So part of that was how do we help that reduce the cost for somebody? But at the same time, if there was going to be a large event, we wanted to be able to plan accordingly. And I believe that is all of those changes. Let me go back to that summary document, the notes document, just to make sure I captured everything. Fees table, the form change, anticipated size. We did talk about, there is, a question came up last time as well, if someone does reserve the facility and it's not used, how to, so there is something already written in that if it's scheduled and you don't use it, that would be grounds for not, kind of follow that discipline at that point, or at least conversation, and then lose privilege if you keep doing that. So that, I think that answered all the questions from the last time we met. Anything else that's come up in your minds about this one since we talked about it a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, what questions do we have?
I just want to thank you and the committee because it's really, and of course, Dathan, this has really come a long way since we started almost a year ago, if you think about how long we've been talking about this. The only thing, and this is just, I'm going to be curious to see how the process for turning in forms works out.
Okay.
It's not going to stop me from voting on this. So maybe in a year, I think it'll be good to hear back, how that went, to see if we need to tweak anything.
Yep.
Art did bring up the form at agenda review to ask how it was going to be submitted, or maybe that was you, Grant. I can't remember, but I think it was you. And David said, well, wouldn't it be great if we could come up with the prize-winning software for facility use that districts across the nation could use and make some revenue for the district. So if anyone thinks of something, send it our way. But yeah, I do think that that's probably going to be the challenging part, is keeping track of all of that. I know our building folks do a great job, but it's just a lot.
Yeah, I agree. If we could revisit this in a year, just to see, and Jamie and I were discussing this, and possibly having feedback from the people that did use the building put out a little survey to them, see what we can do to maybe make it better. You know, what'd you struggle with, and then what can we do to make it better? And yeah, ideally, if we could have some software, create our own software to help facilitate this, because I don't want to put a bunch of work, especially as we try to make it equal access to facilities for everybody. So I guess one little question I did have is, we have this window where you could submit a request to use the building. So the process will be to gather all of those together and then kind of work through them and
Yep.
assign things? Okay.
So as that window opens, those would all be collected. And if there's no use, let's say there's hardly anybody that signs up at that point. Anything after that would be first come, first served, though.
Okay.
All good? Okay. I move to approve the updated facility rental rates and revised Emporia Public Schools facility usage guidelines as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next is 6B, adopting the Kansas Homeland Security Region 1 Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Dr. Mickelson is here to present this one, something that has reached its point of needing reapproval from the board.
So we approve this every 5 years, and I am going to read from the screen because it's pretty lengthy in just the document itself. So this plan identifies natural and human-caused hazards that may impact the region, assess risk and vulnerability, and outlines long-term mitigation strategies designed to reduce loss of life, property damage, and disruption to essential services, including schools. USD253 is listed as a participating jurisdiction and engaged in the FEMA prescribed planning process alongside counties, municipalities, higher education institutions, and other districts within Kansas Region 1. So we're a part of the Region 1. You will see previous leadership name on this just because Dr. Harder was a part of that planning process the previous time, and then Dr. McGee's name will then go on in replace of her. So that's the only thing that would need to be edited that will be changed when this gets approved and then moved on to the Lyon County group.
What questions do you have?
I don't have any people with far more knowledge about emergency. what's
I've
it
been
called?
learning a lot.
Planning, mitigation, know way more about it than me. I'll motion unless anybody wants to, okay? I move to approve Resolution 2026-5, adopting the 2025 Kansas Region 1 Hazard Mitigation Plan and authorizing submission to the Kansas Division of Emergency Management and FEMA Region 7 for final approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
I'm
That's-
going to add one thing, that as a product of Emporia Public Schools, I was able to read that Roman numeral without hesitation. And that's saying something.
Item 7A, Emporia Public Schools Climate Survey.
Yes, Mr. Britton Hart is here from the Kansas Association of School Boards. He's going to present some information related to this item. This will be the second time that we've conducted this climate survey through the help and partnership with the KASB, and so we have some comparison data that he can go over from 2023 to 2025.
All right, thank you, sir. Hey, good evening. Nice to see everybody. Former students, former teachers, colleagues, been good to be here tonight, so thank you for the time. Also good to see most of you at the convention, so hopefully you glean some things that you could bring back, and if we can ever help you, please help, or please let us know. We'd be happy to. I'm going to reference most of the time that I have tonight. I'm going to reference the comparison document, so if you have that in front of you. We're going to start kind of in just a short overview. Really want to give a little bit of definition to some of the things that you'll utilize and see within that presentation and information that we collected. Also, a little bit of a purpose of how you as a board and a district can utilize that information, some quick wins, and some possible next steps and things to consider as you move forward. As I talked to Dr. McGahey, obviously the current challenges and changes that you have as a district is great right now. Thinking about the survey, there's a lot of positives to glean from that. And so I want you to cherish those things, but also think about how do we communicate those out. The other part of that, if you think of the half glass full, what are some things we can continue to do better? And so those are some things I will encourage you to kind of hone in on as well today. And so I'm going to just start with the purpose. Some of this you already know, but I think as a community is important. The increased transparency and the ability to continue to build trust in our schools and our communities is really critical. We've never been at a point in my career that it's been so fragile. And so I think working toward that is certainly a very good goal. I think this also helps as a data point to drive some of your decision making and make critical decisions as you think about how does this align with our strategic plan, how do we develop deeper connection with our stakeholders, our teachers, our parents, and our students. And maybe something that on the tip of your mind as well is how does this help maybe support some of those budgetary allocations and resources as you think about the finite amount of resources. And so as we kind of jump in, I want to give you just a couple definitions as you think. If you're familiar with this information, just want to make sure that you're aware. But favorability, as you think about in the survey, you'll see that in the 2023 and the 25 survey. Favorability, I think of it as that chasm. So between, is it 51% or is it at 49? And so if it has a positive favorability, it's going to be over that 50%, and that means a majority of the people that took the survey, this is something that they feel like is going in a positive direction. The other things that you'll see is the up arrow, the down arrow, the sideways arrow. Those are just ways to signify that, hey, we're making some positive growth, we're staying neutral, or possibly we had a little bit of regression in an area. And then the last piece, the interpretation. As you know, probably in your professional lives as well, using AI and some of those other functions to really synthesize the information. We're utilizing many of those things right now. And so that's the interpretation of where that comes from. So let's kick off with a little bit of the participation. And so when you think about the participation, it is down a little bit from 2023, about 17%. We see across our platforms that level of engagement from surveys is a little bit down, and partly because it seems like the level of surveys is up as far as the amount of times that we're asking parents. So I've kind of looked through that, and as I talked to Lindell, just finding ways to seek those individuals out that you want to find data. The other challenge with that, as you think as a board, it is difficult to connect with all our families and our stakeholders at this point. How do you connect with them? Do you do it via website? Do you do it email? Do you do it over text? Do you do it all the things that I used to tease the kids about, Facebook and Chat Snap and all those things? There's so many different ways that people get information, and so that is a continued challenge that you need to think through and address. You'll see a fairly stable number as far as, having a good quantity of parents and staff. Parents are considerably down as well, but staff and students are fairly neutral in that sense. If you have questions, let me know. Let's kick off with some quick wins here. There were 6 sections in this survey, as you know, and I'm not going to go through all those sections. Those are going to be things that as you get into maybe some deeper investigation. But I did take those 6 sections, and I did take that comparison, and I ranked those from, if you will, most improved to, let's say, not as. I'm happy to say, and again, being from Emporia and living here as long as I have, this is some great information to share with staff, with community. Lots of good things to say, hey, we're doing really well. And those are things that at times we don't always recognize as much as we should when we're looking at some of the other pieces. So it's interesting to see, obviously, we've had a change in leadership, and every time you have a change in leadership, there's opportunity for new things. And so that's a big piece. That did rank as one of the highest. Principal leadership is on the up as well. Two-way communication, we teased that out a little bit earlier. It's interesting about how we want communication and when we want it. And so I think that's a delicate balance. Obviously, there's an increase in that, but finding the ways to continue to connect is always going to be a challenge and an ongoing thing. And rounding out the last three, the school climate, you're going to also see that kind of show up in some of those growth areas, is how do we continue to support staff and families around discipline and bullying and some of those things that really some of our kids really struggle with. The instructional environment, fairly stable, and then parent and guardian experience has a lot of positive to it, but also, parents are still concerned about their kids and concerned about not just their academics, but also, maybe classroom environment. And so those are some of the quick wins as you think about the 6 major sections. Tonight, we won't dabble a lot with individual buildings. Talking with your superintendent, I think that will kind of go back to some smaller groups as you think about individual site councils and BLTs, those kind of things. But overall data, a lot of positive information that, to be honest, you should be proud of as a board and as a district. So let's slide to some potential growth areas. And as I call these potential, some of these are moving targets a little bit. And so taking some deeper dives into some of these topics and doing a little bit deeper research. At times we have, and I'm guilty of this, that we looked at symptoms versus looking at root causes. And so I would encourage you, just as you go through your work and as a board and a district, are there some things that we can do differently? And are we really treating root causes, or are we just identifying symptoms to fix? Symptoms are obviously a little bit easier to address and at times are things that we gravitate toward. I picked up a few highlights as you think about this. I'll start from left to right, but like when you think about the first one, student behavior, just the consistency of expectation, that is increased when you look at the information, but the consistency across the board is probably fairly moderate. And so there has been some increase in expectation, but the fidelity of that is probably the major piece to that. Again, when we think about staffing, not just in Emporia, but across the state, how do we continue to support staff? How do we continue to recruit? That's going to be something, again. And it really comes down to this around the climate of those buildings, climate of the district, climate of those environments. A lot of factors there, and also the communication. Many of our staff, they want to feel like, hey, I'm making a difference. I feel valued, and I feel supported, and I feel like I have the resources necessary. So again, that's probably something as far as when you think about, do you guys did the Emporia State teacher retention survey at all? Yes. Okay. You'll see as comparison to this that money's important as far as compensation, but not the driving factor. And so there's a lot of driving factors in there that you can utilize, and that'll be a good something you can marry with that. Facilities, obviously, if you've been here a long time, there's been a lot of growth in facilities, been a lot of great input from district and community to support that. But still looking at things around safety, maintenance, long-range planning, those things I know you're probably in the midst of doing right now. Scheduling, recent changes of the way the week and day looks. Obviously, I think your community's giving you a little bit of feedback on what that looks like. How do we continue to have some engagement for kids after school? But also, how do we accommodate families when we think about that? And so looking through that structure, and then round out with mental health and support of students. This also marries to the earlier comment around, continued discipline and bullying and support for not just students, but staff included, and also parents as you think about the resources that we can support parents in as well. And then the last slide I want to share with you, just things to think about as far as next steps. So as you continue to think about your goals, and I know aligning those with some of your strategic plan, how can you continue to find ways to increase engagement? That is a critical piece of not just school districts, but our world, and how do we gain some of that information, establish some clear goals over the next 12 to 18 months to really address some of the things that are in here that will help drive and support the vision that you have and where you're going. And be curious to kind of see what are some of those plans as you kind of scaffold down to the buildings, and how does the building help really impact the larger. So if you think about it this way, you're looking at the lag measures tonight, and each end of building would be some of those lead outcomes, and so how do you build upon those to impact that? And then probably the most important thing that you do outside of hiring a superintendent is having clear goals, and that's set by a strategic plan. And so making sure you have clear goals and you have a focus. At times we struggle, right, with having too many goals, and so how do you narrow that down to really be good at a couple things and do it really well? And so answer questions, or if you need other information as we go forward, be happy to provide that, but that's our report for tonight.
I just wanted to say I'm really glad that you and Lindell have already talked about increasing participation. It was extremely disappointing that only 21 community members managed to get involved in this. Thank you.
When there's a range on any of these results, sometimes it's like, 60 to 75. What's the, why is there that big range instead of one?
Yep, good question. So if you slide over to the actual survey data, where that comes from is that when we pull that data, and let's say if you use instruction to start with, they pull out certain or certain questions that are grouped together. So, for example, if you're talking specifically about academics, there may be 2 or 3 questions around academics. So the low one would be, let's say if there's 3 questions in that range, say 43% to 60, says that, hey, one question was at the bottom end of that, one question was at the top. So you can kind of see the range of, there, if you think of it this way, Art, probably like the themes that are built within. So for example, hate to keep kicking you back and forth, but if you stick with instruction, you have academic preparation, student enthusiasm, curriculum, monitoring student progress, and struggling students. We pull out themes, and so those are the 5 themes, and there's like 3 or 4 questions per theme. And so when you see the range, the lowest question was at 48% on academic prep, and the highest question in that theme was 63. And so then we look at the median and say, was the median from 23 higher or lower compared to what it was in 25? And so then that's where you get the up or the down. So, yeah, good question. You're an analytical guy.
I had a question just to make sure if that information is out there, and if I misread it and that's not something that was a part of this, let us know. But were there any comment boxes where users were able to write their own free-form sort of sentences and stuff? Because I'm not seeing that in the 4 documents we have, which is fine, but is that possible that we could get access to those comments, so that they're de-identified and we don't know who wrote them but can still read them?
Yeah,
Sometimes they just give us a little more insight.
Yep, there's a consensus or a summary of those on the back, but we can get you the raw data as well. Yep. So typically what we do, Mr. Dorsey, is we take, those 1,200 comments, and instead of giving the board 30 pages of those, we synthesize that. And so certainly that is your data to have, but at this point, you just have a summary. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Okay, that's going to bring us to item 7B, the superintendent report.
Yeah, a few items this evening. Last Thursday, February 5th, several of us went to Salina to participate in the required Kansas Education Systems Accreditation School Improvement Day. I listed everybody that went there. I won't take the time to call them out now, but we were there with Salina and Hayes as other peer school districts. Sounds like we're going to get maybe Hutchinson added to our group for next year. We found that out today. So the more the merrier, the more people you get to collaborate with and kind of see what they're doing, share what you're doing, get feedback from each other. And that's what occurred a lot at this particular meeting. Every team would come up and talk about, what structures and fundamentals they chose to work on over the course of the last 12 months. And we're kind of, the cycle is weird because, our cycle will start again here in another month or 2, and then it rotates around so it doesn't follow a school year. But as you shared what you were doing, the other groups were able to ask questions, just provide feedback, challenge you a little bit. Did you do this? Did you do that? And then we got to take our turn kind of challenging them. Right now, a lot of our school improvement fundamentals and structures we're selecting have a lot to do with the fidelity of instruction and working on PSYOP and things that are going to improve our effectiveness in the classroom. We're going to move that over the course of the next year to working on getting better at our Tier 1 instruction. And, how do you do that? Well, you can do that through formative assessments along the way, using some of the mini tests that KSD provides you items for. We can work with our teachers to kind of pace our curriculum and develop and implementation of our curriculum so that we can do common assessments across the district to compare data from school to school, room to room, and not to do that to say you're doing terrible. It's to, hey, someone's having a lot of success over here at a particular set of standards that they're going to be assessed on at the state level on their assessments. Let's get everybody together and talk about what's causing that success. So looking forward to this next year and that school improvement work. Also got a chance to participate for the first time earlier this week in the District Family Advisory Council. Why was it the first time that I participated? I've either not paid enough attention or hadn't been told yet that there was a District Family Advisory Council. And so as soon as I learned about it, I told Dr. Cargila that sounded like something the superintendent should be at, and he graciously allowed me to attend. And so he and Dr. McNamara facilitated that meeting. This is your second or third meeting of that group this year? Third meeting of that group this year. They'll meet one more time, I think. And this time around, they kind of started out by sparking the group's conversation with some questions about, how do we know when our graduates are successful after high school? More than just their tests and things like that. How do we tell that they're successful after high school? And then what evidence should we be looking for that would indicate that success? And we had a lot of good conversations about what success is, and that success really should be defined by the student, right? As long as they're achieving what they want to achieve in life, and we prepared them to do that, whatever it might be, that's probably the best definition of success. The group also reviewed post-secondary success rates as defined by KSDE, and we were able to share that we have outpaced our predictors for success when it comes to post-secondary success based on the algorithms that KSD uses. A part of our strategic plan is about getting parents more involved in logging in and checking their students' progress along the way. And so Dr. Cargila shared some information about how to get into KSDE's Kite Parent Portal program and where they can go to see their child's state assessment data, other key information. So we had some good conversation around that. And then I very briefly shared some information about cost containment because I told them they're probably tired of hearing about it and I'm tired of talking about it. And so we didn't spend too much time on that, but again, had some good conversations. Speaking of cost containment, right? Yeah, the team held its last meeting, not on February 11th, that's today, February 3rd, right? I think that was our last meeting, February 3rd. And so just wanted to take a moment. Probably they're not all watching because I don't know how many of them might tune in at this point, but definitely want to thank them for all of the service that they provided. This involved, our teachers, SSSs, instructional coaches, principals, parents from every attendance area, nonprofits, just community members at large, board members. 3 of you sat on that team. And I feel like we held on to 90% or more of our people all the way through what almost was a full 6-month process of at least 14 hours of work here, not to mention the time that they put in preparation and studying the information as we were putting it out. And so really appreciate that. Again, trying to identify $4 million worth of expenditures. Proud to say that the group identified $5.1 million of potential expenditures to continue to talk about as we move forward. And so that's what we've been doing this week. We've met with middle school leadership. We've met with elementary leadership. We had to reschedule high school leadership from Monday, so we'll do that next week. And so we're just working through at the school level, what can we implement, what can we not implement. Talk to us about why that's feasible or why that's not. It was great dialogue with our principals today, our elementary principals, different ones stepping up and saying, I could be the person that gives in that area. If we could keep this, we think that that's more important than this, and we did some shuffling. So at the end of the day, we're really going to end up with a product that has had a lot of input, and it isn't just what we as a leadership team think we should do. And so I appreciate that, them participating in that. Of course, you will have that same kind of opportunity on March 4th, because by the time we get to March 11th, we really hope that all of you have a great understanding of what it is we're trying to move forward and continue to work on with regard to reducing our expenditures, and that we can get your support for that. And we still follow the two guiding principles that we've had from the beginning to try to impact students as little as possible, and then reduce costs through attrition whenever possible. It was a nice surprise this morning to kind of get a better feel for, at least on the elementary level, that we probably are going to be able to make all of our classroom reductions through attrition. So that was, that was good news. And we were already talking about, how do you shuffle this person from here to there, because that particular position might be going away, but this one is vacant over here and they'd be qualified for that. And so just a lot of good dialogue, trying to find places for everyone to land. Can't promise we'll find places for every single individual to land, but we keep that as one of our two priorities. State legislative update. Lillian, how did that turn out earlier? How did that vote turn out? Didn't go our way?
I fear, I was really trying to pay attention to this meeting, let the record show, but I do think that they did vote to pass that.
So the House did vote to pass participation in that voucher?
To my understanding, yes.
In the federal voucher program?
But don't hold me to that.
Yep. Well, a lot of things are getting debated as we come to the meeting. Things are still being debated, on the House and Senate floor, although the Senate adjourned around 5:40 today, I think. And so we were kind of following a variety of things throughout the day and throughout the evening. And one thing that I can say is pretty clear is that the House and the Senate kind of agree on the fact that they're not going to send the money in the direction of special education funding that is needed to close that gap for covering our excess costs for special education. I found it interesting, some data this week that was being shared actually last Friday by KASB, in that if you think about the amount of base state aid that's being siphoned locally to cover the gap in coverage of excess cost in special education, we're back to like pre-Gannon levels for base state aid. And so I think a big thing that we should all be advocating for is that special education funding. Even if we could just get what the governor recommended, I think it was $50 million of additional, it would help some. Another piece of legislation that we were following was Senate Bill 387, requiring districts to verify 100% of free lunch applications. I'm pretty sure that I saw that passed the Senate at about 5:15 this evening, but it wasn't a landslide, and so there's always an opportunity on the House side, and then potentially the fact that if the governor were to veto it, they may not have the votes to override a veto. And so, again, this bill is the one that would require 100% us to verify through documentation and request of paperwork from anyone qualifying for on the free lunch applications. We would have to verify 100% of those. At the federal level, the guidelines require us and limit us to approve 3% or to verify 3% of those applicants. And all of this conversation is really just a part of a bigger picture of many of those in the state that feel like we're receiving too much at-risk funding, and they're wanting to rewrite the formula in such a way that at-risk funding will decline. And for a district like ours, that could have a significant impact. And that's why, as we work through cost containment, I just keep saying, we have to do the hard work now to try to weather that next storm, and we might not be finished. We might always have to come back to the table. And that would be for all the wrong reasons, right? Because it wouldn't be because we have fewer students, so now maybe we need fewer staff. That's just, there's less money, and we might have just as many students trying to serve with the same needs that existed before. And so it's just, that particular piece is just a money game. It's disappointing to see that Kansas is no different than my experience on the Missouri side when it comes to the legislative sessions. You always hope for them to do nothing, that would be the best case scenario for us in public education. The Senate cell phone ban bill actually kind of stalled because of disagreement among the senators on whether private schools should be involved in the ban as well. And so it kind of brought back to life the House's version of the cell phone ban. And the last piece that I had was that the House had approved a recommendation that school districts have a policy that would limit the use of cell phones. And so that's a win for all of us. And hopefully everything will stay that way. It doesn't get any worse than that. Because again, it's all in the detail, right? If you ban cell phones, then okay, and they can't have access to them. So what does that mean? Now, are we having to buy the lock bags? And with us, with the open lunches, does that mean twice a day we're having to go through the process of locking and unlocking? And there's just a lot of things that I don't think are considered. And our schools primarily have a cell phone ban. I mean, during instructional time in particular, and even at our high school, students can get those out at lunch and so on, but classroom-wise, they're not supposed to be having their cell phones out for any reason. And maybe there's some value in teaching them some personal responsibility rather than having to take it from them and lock it away somewhere. So we'll keep our eyes on that, but so far so good there. Let's see. Oh, have we heard about the bill that would eliminate property taxes completely in our state in favor of a surcharge, not a sales tax, a surcharge on retail transactions starting in January of 2027. I'm wondering about how they do have some mechanisms in while they're phasing it out, but basically it says that you would phase out property taxes starting with a 50% phase out in 28, and then phased out 50% the first year, and then 25% the second year, in 26, and then 27. Be gone by 28. And they would replace it with a 7.6% surcharge on retail purchases up to $20, which I believe adds up to $1.60. So then they're saying anything over $20 would just have a $1.60 per transaction fee. Imagine trying to predict our revenues and create a budget on that kind of a scenario. It would get pretty difficult. I think I hit it all. I put a big long list of a variety of things that were being considered as of last Friday. A few things were added to the list that day, but I think that's everything I have today.
So on that surcharge, are they talking about like a 7.6% plus our current 8.5%?
Yes.
It'd be like a 15 or 16% sales tax in reality.
Surcharge.
I had another question, just on the very first thing on the Keys to School Improvement. The partners were with Salina and Hazen. Was that determined by the state? First of all, those are good partners. I'm surprised that they're, but
they try to put us into somewhat peer groups, and so I believe the state selects those. They assign us.
In this case, I think they did a good job. 'Cause I think we could have been huddled in with some districts that would not be as similar as a standalone district.
Right.
In
And it was interesting because they were all working on standards alignment, and we were all very similar in the things that we were working on.
I want to thank you for the update, especially on 387, and I appreciate that you called Senator Argabright. I wanted just to let you all know that he voted against the bill, and he just spoke so eloquently about supporting families, supporting schools, and don't create a bill that's going to take food out of the mouths of kids. And so your advocacy really paid off, and I was just really proud that he was defending our schools today.
I have a question, but I would also echo Jamie's sentiment. I did have a really positive conversation this morning with Representative Schreiber about House Bill 2468 as well. My question, though, is actually pertaining maybe actually to Dr. Cardula about the District Family Advisory Council. I was wondering if that included any students or recent graduates, and if not, might it be possible to have maybe some recent alumni or older students be a part of that as well?
So the group contains staff members and community members. We've had 7 meetings, and our attendance this last meeting wasn't as high as it had been. So, but we don't include any students yet. But we certainly can as we think about ways of rebranding that committee.
Yeah, and it might be, thank you for sharing that. It might be helpful to maybe have their own sort of committee in a way. I think that maybe the perspective of students who are a year or two out of high school, they might be able to shed some insight into really your question about what makes a high school graduate successful, and so on. Their perspective might be valuable.
Thank you. We can definitely look into that as we move forward. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. That's going to bring us to item 8A, board reports, FHTC.
Yes, we met Monday, had a riveting financial audit review. Every single page. 51, we've never done that here, thank goodness. Don't ever do that to me again, please. We also talked about our Higher Learning Commission timeline. They're coming again for our mid evaluation cycle review at the beginning of March. Grant probably remembers those fun days. So we have to be prepared as board members to answer questions about the work that we do and how that aligns with our strategic plan and supporting students. And we are still on the lookout for a van for that mobile dental unit I mentioned. They just can't snag one in time, and nobody's filling their bid. So if anybody knows of a transport van, the Tech College is looking for one.
The Employer Rec Commission met on January 20th, and I don't have a whole lot of substantive stuff to report, but I did want to share that we had gotten some information about Rec Extra. And so just to kind of give you guys an idea, these are the averages of students' use of Rec Extra per month per school. So Timmerman averaged about 45 students a month. Logan averaged about 21 students a month. William Allen White about 31 students. Riverside 22. So that and Logan were pretty low. Village Elementary 67 and Walnut Elementary 45 students a month, just to kind of give you an idea of the usage. And we were also able to run a profit analysis of that, and I believe we're actually up about $11,000. So the rec wasn't actually in the hole in that partnership, and I just want to give them a shout out again because we were kind of in some dire straits with the Boys and Girls Club just because of services not being able to be there, and the rec really stood up. And I mean, honestly, I've never heard anyone really say anything bad about Rec Extra. I mean, and people complain to us a lot. But they're phenomenal people over there. We're fixing, I think it was a projector on the golf simulator. So if that was something that was crimping your swing, that should be fixed here pretty soon. And then I think that there was some planning around the DeBoche complex that probably the executive director may be more apt to be able to discuss than I can in this setting. But it's good stuff. Good stuff at the rec.
I just want to mention with the Rec Extra, I think that's a super success story because, I mean, for them to take it back over on extremely short notice and then have as much success and people are happy with it.
Yeah, I'll make sure they know. I tell them that all the time. I mean, they really turned it around with very little notice to get that up and moving. So it was kind of Herculean, and I'm really proud of that group of people over there.
In a very negative direction possibly, but it didn't. Yeah. And so very proud of that.
Okay, that's going to bring us to item 9A, executive session student.
I move to enter executive session for 15 minutes to discuss confidential student information pursuant to the exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under Kansas Open Meetings Act, and to return to this room at 7:10 p.m. Superintendent Dr. David McGehee, Director of Assessments and Accountability Dr. Ryan Cardula, and Attorney Chase Pumford are invited to join the session. Action is anticipated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move to return to regular session.
Motion passes 7-0.
I motion to enter executive session for 10 minutes to discuss confidential student information pursuant to the exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under coma, and to return to this room at 7:22 p.m. Superintendent Dr. David McGehee, Director of Assessments and Accountability Dr. Ryan Cardula, and Attorney Chase Pumford are invited to join the session. Action is anticipated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
I'll take a hand vote, please. Motion passes 7-0.
I motion to return to regular session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move to enter into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss confidential student information pursuant to the exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under coma, and to return to this room at 7:35 p.m. Superintendent Dr. David McGehee, Director of Assessments and Accountability Dr. Ryan Cardula, and Attorney Chase Pumford are invited to join the session. Action is anticipated.
All in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
I moved, oh, sure. Oh, okay. I moved to return to regular session first.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote. Grant.
Motion passes 7-0.
I'm going to make a motion. I move that the Board of Education adopts Resolution 2026-6 to affirm the extended term suspension as recommended by the hearing officer and affirmed by the appellant hearing officer.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item H, executive session, superintendent evaluation.
I move to enter executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the superintendent evaluation pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA, and will return to open session in this room at 7:55 PM. No action is anticipated.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move to return to regular session.
Second.
Return to regular.
It's been moved and seconded. Uh-oh.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And that brings us to item 10A, future board calendar dates. Our next meeting will be February 25th. And then on Wednesday, March 4th, we will have a board work session here at Mary Herbert starting at 5:30. And then our Wednesday, March 11th meeting. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your vote.
Jamie, yeah, sure.